All right. Well, welcome to all of you. Thanks so much for taking time to attend our session, Leveraging Learner Data. First, I want to start by introducing our presenter team. We have Christina Bifulco from Rutgers, who is running the slides for us today. Thank you, Christina. Alexandra Bitton-Bailey from University of Florida. I'm Gwen Gorzelsky from Colorado State. Jane Russell from University of Iowa, and Damji Stratton from the University of Missouri System. So we really appreciate your being here, and we'll start with just a quick overview. First, we're going to review the types of learning data analyses that will be available soon from the Unizin Data Marts, and I know we have Unizin colleagues here to help correct and clarify and add information as needed about the data marts. As we do the overview, we will ask you to share ideas in a Jamboard frame, and Christina has posted that link in the chat, and we'll explain more about that, and she just updated it for folks who weren't here originally. We'll explain more about the Jamboard in a few minutes, so you may want to click that link, make sure you can get in, and we'll ask you to add some ideas there. After that, we will ask you to choose one of 3 breakout groups where you will generate ideas on a key topic related to helping faculty use the Unizin Data Mart analyses ethically, equitably, and effectively. So with colleagues in your breakout session, you'll prioritize sets of ideas that you see as most crucial to reach that outcome. So finally, we'll have a really quick debrief at the very end as a whole group about our plan for the presenter team will synthesize your feedback, and then within the next several weeks after the Unizin Summit, we'll share those feedback with you if you are interested. If you are, we're going to ask you to add your name and your email address on one of the frames in the Jamboard. We're also going to use your feedback in designing faculty development resources to assist faculty at Unizin institutions in using the Unizin Data Mart analyses in the way that we've been talking about, ethically, equitably, effectively. These faculty development resources are actually being built right now by 3 task forces sponsored by the Faculty Development Subcommittee of the Unizin Teaching and Learning Advisory Group. And Christine, I think we're ready for the next slide. Thanks. So the Unizin Data Mart will provide the basis for analyses of learning data that are already available in Canvas, and sometimes those data will be combined with data from institutional research and other sources that have already been ingested into the data marts. These data are on students' demographics and prior preparation. So as you can see on this slide, there are 3 themes within the data marts. One has to do with impact of course activities. One has to do with measurement of engagement or disengagement, though we might better shift that term, I think, per our Unizin colleagues, to activities, measurement of activity in Canvas. And the last theme has to do with course composition and descriptive statistics. There are also 4 levels of data for each theme. These include level 1, the individual student, level 2, which is for the whole course, and level 3, which is the program or curriculum. So that can be across a set of courses. There's also a 4th level on predictive and suggestive analytics, but we're going to focus on those first 3 levels, the individual student, the course, and the program. Throughout today's presentation, we will look at 3 scenarios, 1 for each of the levels. And our scenarios will address the 3 themes: impact of course activities, measurement of engagement or activity, and class demographics. And each scenario will take a different time perspective, and I'll say more about that in a few minutes. As we discuss the scenarios, we want to invite you to post your thoughts about the risks and opportunities posed by faculty members' use of analyses available from the Unizin Data Marts. So to do that, please go into the link for the Jamboard session and look at the first frame. Once you're there, and Christina just posted that link again in case anybody still needs it. Once you're in that first frame, you can see it as Christina's sharing it on screen. We're asking you to use pink sticky notes to post possible risks and green sticky notes to post possible opportunities. And Christina's just showing how to do that. So you can see there's a toolbar on the left, and the fourth icon from the top is the sticky note icon that she clicked. Then once you have clicked that icon, you can choose the color of your sticky note, type your idea, save the sticky, and then move it where you want it in the frame. So hopefully that's clear for everybody. If you have any questions or are running into any trouble, of course, please put a note in the chat so that we know, or unmute and let us know. So after we present the scenarios, then we will break into groups, and each group will address a key question, one of which is about campus stakeholder group, which campus stakeholder groups need access to which types of Unizin Data Mart analyses. But we'll say more about that when we get there. Thanks, Christina. So the 4 lenses listed on this slide, they apply to each level and each theme in the table that we just looked at for the Unizin Data Mart analyses. Each lens highlights a key perspective to be considered. So for example, time might be the first several weeks of a course, might be a whole semester, or it might be over multiple semesters, especially if we're comparing multiple courses. STEM might relate not only to the course students are currently taking, it might also refer to students' prior preparation and key STEM knowledge and skills, or to the impact of a current course on students' preparation for a future STEM course. Equity has to do with questions like, do this course's activities engage students across demographics similarly or differently? Or another equity-related question, do the course's activities impact students from across demographics similarly or differently? Finally, user views will likely differ for students, faculty, advisors, academic administrators, executive leaders, and so forth. We won't talk a lot about that during today's presentation, but you might have comments or questions about that, either that you're adding to the Jamboard or right now as we're presenting, or once we get to the breakout session. So definitely welcome to address that issue. So all 3 of the scenarios that we will share with you in a few minutes involve a STEM course, and we will discuss how each one does or does not address equity. And with that, I will hand it over to Christina to start the scenarios.
So we're going to start with level 1. So this is looking at that individual student, and we are looking at it in relation to theme 2, which is the measurement of engagement. So when analyses are focusing on that individual student, the goal is typically to determine when and how an instructor or advisor can intervene and support that student, right, to success. For example, it's been shown that strong student engagement, right, student attention is important for learning and academic success. So that goal may be to identify those students who are less engaged with low stakes homework assignments and support through instructor outreach to those students. Identifying more and less engaged students can involve comparisons to peers, but the goal isn't to look for those course level patterns. It's really, again, to provide, to identify and support interventions for those individual students who are going to benefit from that outreach. To identify these students, we need to define what we mean by the term engaged, right? That could be very different for a lot of people. Does being engaged in a course mean that 2 weekly homework assignments are done 100%? Or maybe not too many of the students are categorized as engaged, are going to hit that 100%. So maybe engaged actually means completing 75% of the homework assignment, or maybe 50%, right? So defining that is important to begin with. So our scenario is based on an analysis and intervention in a foundational STEM course at a Unizin member institution. So, in this case, the instructors considered engagement with homework assignments, and they looked at the top 1/3 of students who were engaged, the middle 1/3, and the bottom 1/3 who were least engaged. So instructors decided to reach out to the students in the bottom third in terms of their engagement with homework assignments. So as you can see, the mean submission rate for the lowest 1/3 is only 43%. So not the best. The instructors decided to manage outreach by expanding actually the role of the teaching assistant. So they used their graduate teaching assistants to reach out to those students at that bottom 1/3 of the class regarding completion of weekly homework assignments. So thinking about those Unizin Data Mart lenses, as you can see, this scenario is considering a short slice of time. It is a short amount of time, just a couple of weeks within the course. While there's an opportunity, though, for students to increase their engagement and improve their performance, right? So we're looking for that change. The example does involve a STEM course. But this example doesn't really consider equity. For example, it doesn't address whether outreach should be handled differently depending on students' identities or demographics. It does suggest some questions about users' access to data, given that both instructors and TAs are directly involved in using those analytics to manage that outreach to the students. Here we can see that we're only looking at the proportion of homeworks that were submitted, not in this analysis at any correlation between submission rates and course grades or other indicators of academic performance. So we are going to think about this correlation, though, in our next scenario.
Could you? Yeah. For the level 2 analysis, now we compare the rate of the homework submission and the final grade of the course. We would look into the correlation between these two. Could you? Yeah. So initially, based on this data and the scenario, the homework submission rate was not as much as this, but now, as you can see, a lot of students submitted towards the like 70 or 80 or 90, 100, thanks to the intervention of the TAs. And now we could compare like based on this the arbitrary group, like students who submitted at least 60% or above, or less than 60% of the submitted, less than 60%, and then compare like who have the percentage of the A, B, and C, and or D or F. And as you can see, 60% or above submitted got C, D, and F, like this many, and yeah, students who submit less than 60% got way more F, C, and D, and F. Another thing that we could also think of to extend this relationship is we could consider the completion and correlation rates by student demographics as well. Thank you.
Okay, so level 3 involves the data at the program level or other instances where we would like to consider multiple courses. So for example, we may want to examine the relationship between performance on a final assessment in the prerequisite course and the performance on the first major assessment in the subsequent course. So here we are studying which aspects of the prerequisite course most prepare students to succeed in a subsequent course. And in addition to defining the term success, we also need to define what we mean by prepared. So for this scenario, we are extending the one that we just discussed, where completing 60% of the homework correlated with earning a grade of C or better in a foundational STEM course at the Unizin institution. In this case, we want to know whether completing some proportion of the homework prepares students to succeed in the subsequent course. Because the first several weeks of the course draw heavily on materials from the prerequisite course, and we are defining success as a grade of the C or better on the first exam in the subsequent course. So we are looking at the relationship of homework completion in the prerequisite course to this outcome. So if we find there is a completion rate that correlates with the earning the C or better on the first exam in the subsequent course, and we'll define achieving that rate as being prepared to succeed in the subsequent course. Next slide, please. So in our fictional analysis, we found that completing 80% of the homework in the prerequisite course highly correlated with earning a C or better on the first exam in the subsequent course. So if an analysis that produced this finding, the results that could be shared as they are on this slide. So if so, we might want to take the several steps. First, we want to share this information with the students and instructors and TAs in both the prerequisite and the subsequent courses. And instructors and TAs in the prerequisite course might remind the students periodically of this finding and encourage students to complete at least 80% of the homework. Maybe even finding the ways to help the students to track their completion rates and offer additional support to students with the low completion rates. And instructors and TAs in the subsequent course might seek information on how many students were less prepared, which can be measured by homework completion in the prerequisite course. And they might offer them additional resources in the learning management system site of the subsequent course or elsewhere on campus. And so in terms of the Unizin Data Mart lenses, as you can see, the time horizon has extended beyond the single semester and into a second semester. So in terms of the equity, we might extend the analysis by asking whether the correlation is similar or different across demographic groups, and whether the homework completion rates differ or not across demographics. So as with the second scenario, adding the questions about the equity brings us into the theme number 3, the student demographics. So like the second scenario, this one raises some questions about which campus stakeholder groups might view the findings as useful and important for their work. Alex?
Thank you. So I want to thank you ahead of time for sharing ideas in the Jamboard with us, because this will help us it will inform our work as we design faculty development resources for using these Unizin Data Marts for ethical, effective, and equitable analysis. So when you join the breakout rooms, you'll have 15 minutes in there. And in those breakout rooms, you'll hopefully share as many ideas as possible. Your facilitators will review how to use the Jamboard, post your ideas, and guide you in voting on the ideas you think are most crucial to using these data marts. We'll come back together in the last few minutes so we can then explain how we'll synthesize all of this feedback. We'll collect your names and emails if you're interested in receiving those bits of information. You'll see 3 breakout rooms. I'm going to open them right now, and you should be able to join whichever one feels most appropriate or you feel you have the most interest in joining. Room 1 is stakeholder groups. Room 2 is faculty development resources. And room 3 is rollout strategies. So please go ahead and join one of the breakout rooms. When we talk about stakeholder groups, it's which stakeholder groups will need access to which types of data mart. When we talk about faculty development resources, we want to know which faculty development resources exist to educate stakeholder groups, such as instructors, administrators, and students, and how to use these data, and which resources might still be needed. And finally, what overall strategic considerations need to be taken into account when rolling out the Unizin Data Marts on your campus. So we invite you to join the room of your choice. They should all be open. You should be able to access them. And go ahead and have this time to brainstorm with your colleagues.
And if anybody does have trouble joining a stakeholder, or pardon me, joining a breakout group, please let us know that. You can speak up or post it in the chat.
And feel free as well to just you can rename yourself and put the number of the room that you'd like to go into at the front, and we can move you into that room, no problem.
And I can stay in here for a little bit and move people appropriately. So Gwen, if you want to go to room 3, and Christina, room 1, and Jane, room 2. I can stay in this middle space and help. Hi there. Do you need help getting to the room of your choice? I'm happy to move you there. If you could just either unmute your mic and let me know where you'd like to go, or set a timer.
Hey, Alex, this is Sarah, your host. I'm happy to help these people out if you want to hop into one of your own break
Okay,
rooms.
perfect.
Yeah.
I was just setting a timer.
Yeah, I'll wait for them to reply or just move them somewhere.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Hi, I've been posting in the chat, but apparently nobody is seeing it. My invitation to join has disappeared, and I requested for someone to send me to room 3.
Oh, for sure.
So you might want to check chat. Maybe some of the other people are not.
Yeah, I just looked and I just sent you an invitation for
Okay,
there.
thank you.
Hey, James.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing all of those great ideas. We'll synthesize all of your responses in the Jamboard after the summit. And if you're interested in receiving the results of the synthesis, please use the sticky note on or text box on the very last Jamboard slide, and go ahead and share your email address. We'll be happy to share that information with you at the very end. And Christina is amazing for sharing that yet again. So provisionally. Other than that, we want to thank you so much for attending this session. I'm going to turn it over to Gwen so she can finish wrapping us up.
Thanks, Alex. And just to echo Alex's point, yeah, thank you so much for sharing the ideas. We got some really great feedback in breakout session 3, and I'm excited to look at the other breakout sessions. I see some of you are putting your names and email addresses in that 5th frame of the Jamboard, which is great. I imagine that we will do the synthesis in like Google Sheets, something that's easy to share. So once that's ready, we'll watch for an email from one of us and we'll include the link to that, and there will be some explanation if you're interested in seeing the results. And just to echo a point that we made earlier, also, we are all involved in the Faculty Development Subcommittee of the Unizin Teaching and Learning Advisory Group. And so that there are 3 task forces that we are participating in to build and design faculty development resources for using the learning analytics data available through the UDP analyses, as we've been saying throughout the session, in ways that are ethical, equitable, and effective. So we will definitely be using your feedback today to inform those faculty development efforts. So I think we are about out of time. If you have a question or concern, I'm sorry that we don't really have much time to address those, but please feel free to put that in the chat in the last minute, put it in the Jamboard, or email any of us, and we will be really happy to get back to you. I think that is it for our session. Thank you again for coming. Really appreciate your participation.
Thank you.
Thank you.